Came up about the church of Pergamum, and so we're going to answer that question first. The question is in chapter 2, verse 17. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit has to say to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will also give him a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to him who receives it. Okay. Question was, what is a hidden manna? And we might as well deal with the white stone while we're there, because we.
Huh? I didn't even think to ask that.
When we were dealing with that church, we had to get upstairs quick, so we didn't finish it, and we didn't get back to it. So we'll just deal with both of them. The hidden manna is normally referred to as spiritual nourishment. Manna was the nourishment that God gave the children of Israel when they came to the desert. It came down like snow. It was kind of a fluffy, grainy type thing. And they made bread out of it every day. And then later on, due to their whining, he gave them quail to go with it.
Biblical granola.
It was what?
Biblical granola.
Biblical granola.
I don't think it. I'm pretty sure it wasn't granola. I don't think granola came from God. Whatever. I think we messed up the grain somehow and ended up with granola. But that's my opinion. That's just my opinion. It came down, they made bread out of it, and it's written somewhere that inside the ark is the tablets, the stones that was given to God, that were given to Moses, and there's a container of the manna. And I was asked this morning if Aaron's staff was in there too. I can't remember ever reading that. But I'm 70 years old, and a lot of things that I remember reading, I no longer remember reading. So I will research that for you and bring an answer to the staff next week. I don't think the ark was that big.
It was broken half. I remember something about that. I remember the staff got broke and it got put in there.
Maybe that. I will research that. I will find an answer, and I'll bring it next week. I don't know what the answer is this morning. Now, the white stone, there was a tradition in the church from the very beginning, clear back at Jacob. When someone entered into the service of God, they were given a new name. Jacob became Jacob became Isaac. Simon became Peter. Saul became Paul. And there's all kinds of incidents in the Bible where when people entered into the second life or the new life in Jesus Christ, they were given a new name by God. And they went, after they did that, they answered that new name for the rest of their life. Except for Jacob. Jacob had bad days. And if you read through Jacob's life in the Old Testament, when he was being good, it refers to him as Isaac. When he was being bad, it refers to him as Jacob again. And he just, on the same page, he might bounce back and forth 3 times. You know, it was God's way of saying, well, you were mine 10 minutes ago, but you're not mine anymore. I don't know what you're doing down there. And I wonder how often he scratched his head and referred to me as something else. But the white stone is, you know, when we entered into the first life, our physical life, our heavenly parents, our earthly parents gave us a name. And my name was William Lee. And when we entered into the kingdom of God, God gave us a name that was appropriate to who we were. And it's referring to that name. Those are any questions on that? Further questions?
So what's our name supposed to be?
Only you know.
You would be Dum Dum?
Yeah, read it to you. I will also give him a white stone with a new name written upon it, known only to him who receives it. That's a personal thing between you and God. It's like my grandkids call me Poppy. My earthly name is William, but my grandkids call me Poppy. And they call Grandma Grammy. And they tell all their friends that I'm Poppy. When we go up there to visit and their friends come over, they all call me Poppy. So it's that name for that relationship. That's what my grandkids call me. Now they call Andy's mom and dad, they call them Grandma and Grandpa, but they call us Poppy and Grammy. So and that's how they differentiate between them. And it's significant to that specific relationship. And you know, God has a name that he calls you by, and it's a spiritual thing. But when he wants to get your attention, he gets it. So I don't know. You'll have to check it up with God.
Jesus gets a new name too. We'll get there, right? But Jesus gets a new name too.
Jesus has 119 names.
Right, but doesn't it say, maybe I'm wrong again, like a staff.
Have you ever been wrong?
No, I don't think so. There's bound to be a day.
I was gonna say, he's shaking his head back
There's bound to be a
there.
day where I am, but I think, doesn't it say that he will give Jesus a new name that no one has blasphemed and no one has ruined and used in the wrong way?
Jesus has a name that we can't even pronounce. If you go back into the original Hebrew, the combination of the letters that is given to the Son of God, my God the Father, cannot be pronounced by a human tongue. It is like PFD. I mean, and I've seen it. I've got it at home somewhere. But it is a name that we cannot pronounce. We cannot put those letters together and make the sounds together to say that name. But you have to go into the original Hebrew to find it, back in the Old Testament. It's a name that only he can speak to Jesus with. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, because we mess it up.
Okay, Sardis chapter 3. Somebody read 1 through 6. If you have any questions, write them down, and if we don't get to them on the day we're talking about it, we'll get to them the next day. We mean, don't just let it fly. Don't let it go by. Because other people have little questions too. Okay, anybody?
1 to what?
1 to 6. 1 through 6.
These are the words of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your deeds. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Wake up. Strength what remains and is about to die, for I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard, obey it and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. Yet you have a few people in Sardis who have not soiled their clothes. They will walk with me, dressed in white, for they are worthy. He who overcomes will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out his name from the book of life, but will acknowledge his name before my Father and his angels. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Okay, what's going on here? What's he describing in today's language?
Complacency. Complacency. Maybe just complacency.
Complacency? It's worse than that. Hang on to that when we get to Laodicea. Okay? It's worse than that. What is a person who appears to be one thing is really another?
Hypocrite.
A hypocrite. Hey, he's talking about the church being hypocritical. They're teaching one thing, but they're doing something totally and completely different. Now, how did that happen? Well, they started out being energetic, and then they became persecuted and strong, their faith grew. And then they began to compromise. They began to discuss the teaching of the Nicolaitans. What happened last week? They entered into adultery. They became unfaithful to the teaching of God. And then after they become unfaithful, they fell. And now they're hypocrites. They're standing up there preaching Jesus Christ, preaching love, preaching all this. And they're cheating on their spouses, and they're having all kinds of things going on. Well, what at this point in time in history, we're in the Dark Ages. And the church during the Dark Ages started to take advantage of the people who were living on the earth. Because they were poor, and governments weren't very strong and weren't protecting people. Society was in chaos. And so the church, in this period of the history of the church, they began to take advantage of the people. And this is where the church came up with being excommunicated and being able to buy your way out of hell, being able to buy your mother's way out of hell and your father's way out of hell. And it was extortion is what it was. And so the church in this period of time, they became, this period of time was 1520 to 1750. In this period of time, the church wasn't a loving organization. The church was an organization that was taking advantage of the people, not helping the people. Okay? And then, so the key word here is hypocrites. They were hypocrites. They were saying one thing and doing another. And we know people like that, don't we? We know people who say they're Christians and stand up and talk about how good they are and how much they've done. Then we find out that they're pedophiles, or they're cheating on their wife, or they're get arrested by the IRS, and we find out that they're really not what they said they were. And there's famous Jimmys throughout church history. Jimmy Baker, and Jimmy Swaggart. Who's the other Jimmy?
Jimmy Jones.
Jim Jones. You know, they got 900 people in the congregation. They've got thousands and thousands of people following around Africa after them. And then we find out that they're not anything like they preach to be. We might as well just all be honest about it. None of us are perfect, and we all have dark closets. Don't follow me to heaven. Follow Jesus. I'm having enough trouble getting there on my own. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. So, you have soiled your clothes. You should be walking with me dressed in white, for they are worthy. Oh, there's a few people who have not soiled their clothes, and they walk in white. White stands for purity. Okay? And when Jesus Christ returns, he returns on a white horse, and he returns in white robes. And he has been purified, and he will come back, and he will come back get us. Okay. And at that point in time, it says, when we are taken up in the meeting in the sky, so we're in the process between here and there. We will leave as we are, but when we arrive, we will be dressed in a white robe. We will be given the purity of Jesus Christ. Okay, any questions on that? Philadelphia. Well, the church of Sardis was not given any, they had no strength. Jesus did not say, you're famous for this, you're famous for your persecution, you're famous for having a lot of energy. The church of Sardis get no commendation whatsoever. They were only chastised. Okay, now Philadelphia.
The angel of the church of Philadelphia write, These are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars. I will make them come and fall down at the feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command to endure partially, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test those who live on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will he leave it. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write to him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Okay. What was the chastisement to this church, this period of church history?
None.
No, there was no chastisement. Because the church repented. It started with Calvin. It started with Luther. It started with a lot of great martyrs that were killed during the Dark Ages. But they sowed the seeds that would bring the church back to its senses and would return the church to what it was supposed to be. This was a huge and great missionary era of the church. It seems that if we're deeply involved in missions and if we're deeply involved in helping people, we don't have time to be bad. Okay? It's when we're sitting around trying to act like we're something we're not that we drift off into problems. And that's the way it was with the church. The church got its fire back. The church decided that it was going to correct all these things. And yeah, they persecuted Calvin and they persecuted Luther and they burnt people at the stakes. And all it did, all the persecution did at the end of the Dark Ages, was to make the church wake up and return back to its origins. And this period of time lasted from 1750 to 1906, and it gave us great evangelists like Billy Sunday, Billy Graham, all those Parker in London. I'll be able to name you 15 people, and the Wesleys, John and Charles Wesley. And I'll pop them out as we finish the class. But Spurgeon was a great preacher that wrote most of the doctrine that we follow today in his studies. They said that Spurgeon decided to teach a doctrinal study on Romans. And so he preached an hour in the morning at 7 o'clock and an hour in the evening at 7 o'clock. There was standing room only in the church. He did it 7 days a week. There was standing room only 7 days. People came in and stood to hear him preach. And at the end of 9 years, he was just finishing up chapter 3. Kind of sounds like us and Job, doesn't it? Only not done near as well. He's a great preacher. He had a great understanding of the truths of the Scripture, and he could relate it to the world in a way that no one else could. He's got a lot of Spurgeon books. You can borrow them if you want to. they're kind of technical and they're kind of on a higher plane. And a lot of times I scratch my head and read a paragraph over and over again 3 or 4 times. But once you realize it, once you realize how he's connecting this with this, it's just like a light coming on. He just was a tremendous, tremendous preacher, and he lived during this period of time. He was a major player in turning the church around and getting it back in the right direction. Now, something happened around 1906, and that brings us up to the present, that gives us the Church of Laodicea. What was it?
I wasn't here yet.
You realize that almost every single thing we have today
Technology.
is less than 100 years. Technology is less than 100 years old. You go back to 1900, people were living in a little 2-room house, 4-room house, and they were eating and cooking with fire, and they were riding around in a wooden box pulled by an animal. And that's the way it has
Sounds like a
been.
good life to me.
Huh?
Sounds like a good life to me. Did they still drag their women by their hair back then? Into the
Where's
cave?
your wife? You get your wife.
Hey, pretty brave, isn't
That's when the wives started
She's
carrying the
recovering
knives
from her
around.
hair being pulled.
We can sure tell Alicia's not here today, but we will let her know.
I'll let her. As I say, I'll let her watch the video. You
Yeah.
know.
But that's really what technology is.
Yeah, technology is one of our greatest downfalls.
Why did it happen then, though?
Before technology, we used to depend upon each other. We used to have relationships. Have you ever sat in a restaurant and watched what's going on at the table? Nobody's talking anymore. They're texting each other across the table. It's beep, 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 beep.
Last night.
They read it. They type an answer. It goes back across the table, and they read it and type an answer. And this is all over the room. We don't talk to each other anymore. We don't look each other in the eye. Have you ever watched the politicians on TV in front of the camera? They can't even look the camera in the eye.
It's because they're lying.
They're lying, yeah.
Like Rick.
I'm not talking about Democrats or Republicans. I'm talking about all of them.
Yep.
Watch them sometimes. The ones that I have the best opinion of will look you right in the eye, will look the camera right in the eye, and will say what they have to say. The rest of them are looking over here, and they're looking up here, and they're looking, and they're wandering around. We can't look each other in the eye anymore. And it's all about this technology, and we've lost a lot.
You're scary. Stop staring at me. You're scaring me.
I remember when I was a
Make me
kid,
nervous.
there was one TV in the house. There was one TV in the house, and 6 people had to watch it and decide on who was going to watch what. Now,
Since you was a kid, it didn't matter. Dad got to watch what he wanted.
And you had to stand there and turn the channel.
Scaring me.
Go outside, turn
Turn
it.
sometimes I had
That
to
was
hold
my
on
job.
to hold on to the antenna and all, but so that the reception would come in. We lived a long ways from anywhere. But, we didn't get very good reception.
No.
But everybody had to watch the same TV, and you had to get along. I mean, there had to be some negotiation, there had to be some interaction between you. Now we just all go off to, how many, I don't even want to tell you how many TVs are in my house, and there's 2 of us. It's crazy.
It doesn't matter. Ours, we'll all sit in the same room, but the boys will have their screens, their headphones in.
At least you're together.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm sitting here with you, but you're not.
Yep. Well, it's, technology has destroyed our sense of relationship and our sense of fellowship.
Internet is the devil.
We've been sitting there.
But
Internet is the devil.
Well,
Facebook is the devil.
I'm not going to go that far, but the devil certainly does use them in a lot of ways.
But why did it start in that period? I mean, what That's what I'm always trying, I mean, why did it start like early in the 1900s and not?
I have literally,
Because it
you
was,
look at me, I need to.
because it was prophesied. If you go to the book of Daniel, it says that in the final days of human history, there would be a huge explosion of knowledge. And basically,
That's in Daniel?
yeah, that's in Daniel. And we'll look at that when we get out of the churches. We'll look at some of that. But the truth of the matter is, you can't have revelation without Daniel. You can't. Daniel is the foundation for everything that you find in Revelation. But the bottom line is, the technology has taken over our relationships with one another. Prior to this, the divorce rate was like 18%. Because people had to depend on each other. They had to lean on each other. Their lives became woven together and tight.
That judge was coming along pulled by an animal.
And Mr. Director Wiser, I'm about
We wouldn't get there fast enough.
Vote back in.
Hold that thought. We'll start there next week. We gotta go up.
Where is Alicia? I'm
Well,
calling